Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Earth's dawn, watching the stars stretch past the viewport. His ship moved through space near the Kepler 442 system on what should have been a routine exploration mission. The year was 2387, and humanity had been exploring space for over a century, but they had never met another intelligent species until today. Navigator Lisa Grant checked her instruments and frowned. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. These ships are huge, much larger than anything we've ever built." Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez looked up from his console with worry in his eyes. "Sir, my scanners show at least 50 vessels heading our way. The smallest one is 3 times the size of our ship." Communications Officer Kate Williams turned toward the captain with her headset crackling. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission on multiple frequencies. It's not in any human language, but my computer is trying to translate." Jake Morrison had commanded ships for 15 years and had faced pirates, asteroid storms, and system failures, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He straightened his uniform and looked at his crew. "Put the transmission on speakers and keep trying to translate. All stations report ready." The bridge filled with strange sounds that gradually became words as the computer worked. A deep voice spoke with authority that seemed to shake the very air. "Primitive species, you have entered territory controlled by the Galactic Empire. State your origin and purpose or be destroyed." Morrison stepped forward and activated the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Federation vessel Earth's Dawn. We come in peace on a scientific mission. We mean no harm to anyone." The response came quickly and without warmth. "You will prepare to be boarded. Your ship and crew are now property of the Empire. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Within an hour, massive alien ships surrounded Earth's Dawn. The largest vessel extended docking tubes and armed figures in strange armor moved through the corridors. Jake Morrison and his crew were escorted to the main docking bay, where they came face to face with their captors. Admiral Vexitar stood nearly 8 feet tall with scales that reflected the ship's lights like green metal. His yellow eyes studied the humans as if they were insects. Behind him stood representatives of other species, all wearing the same imperial uniforms with symbols that spoke of conquest and control. "I am Admiral Vexitar of the Imperial Saurian Fleet, the Reptilian," Commander announced. "Your species has developed faster than light travel and expanded beyond your home system. This cannot continue without Imperial oversight." Morrison looked around the docking bay at the advanced technology and weapons, but he did not show fear. "Admiral, humanity seeks peaceful contact with other species. We have no desire for conflict, but we also will not accept domination." Vexitar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your tiny ships and primitive weapons suggest otherwise. The Galactic Empire has ruled this sector for over 3,000 years. 12 advanced species bow to Imperial authority and maintain order throughout known space." "What exactly are you demanding of humanity?" Morrison asked. "Complete submission," Vexitar replied without hesitation. "All human colonies will pay tribute to the Empire. All human ships will require Imperial permits for space travel. Your homeworld will accept a governing council of Imperial overseers who will guide your species toward civilization." Lisa Grant stepped beside her captain and spoke clearly. "And if we refuse? Then your species will be eliminated as a threat to galactic stability," Vexitar said with cold certainty. "We have done this before with species that refuse to accept their place in the natural order." Morrison felt anger building inside him, but he kept his voice steady. "Admiral, I think you misunderstand humanity. We've spent our entire history fighting for freedom. We fought against kings and emperors on our own world. We fought against those who would enslave us because of our race or beliefs. We even fought against our own governments when they became too powerful." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. "Your history means nothing here. You face the combined might of 12 advanced species with technologies your primitive minds cannot comprehend. Maybe our technology isn't as advanced as yours," Morrison admitted. "But don't mistake our desire for peace as weakness. Throughout human history, whenever someone tried to push us too far, they learned that humans fight differently when cornered. We don't just fight to win battles. We fight until the threat is completely destroyed. Tony Rodriguez nodded and added, "Every tyrant in human history thought the same thing your empire thinks now. They all believed their superior weapons and numbers guaranteed victory. They were all wrong." Vextar gestured toward the massive ships surrounding them. "Look around you, human. Your largest warships are smaller than our escort vessels. Your entire fleet numbers in the hundreds, while the Imperial Navy commands over 10,000 battleships." Kate Williams spoke up from behind Morrison. "Numbers didn't help the British Empire control America. Superior weapons didn't help the Nazis conquer Europe. Technology didn't help the Soviet Union survive. When humans decide to fight for their freedom, we don't stop until we win." "Your historical references are meaningless," Vexitar said dismissively. "Those were conflicts between members of your own species. You now face enemies you cannot even imagine." Morrison stepped closer to the towering alien commander. "Admiral, I'm trying to prevent a war that will cost both our peoples dearly. Humanity wants peaceful coexistence with the Empire and all galactic species. We're willing to discuss trade agreements, cultural exchange, and mutual defense treaties. What we will never accept is slavery." "You speak of war as if your species poses some threat to the Empire," Vextar replied. "Your combined military forces could not defeat the garrison of a single Imperial world." "Then why are you here in such force to subdue a primitive species?" Morrison asked. 50 warships to deliver an ultimatum suggests you're not as confident as you claim." For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Vexitar's yellow eyes. "The Empire maintains overwhelming force to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. Submit now and your people will be treated fairly under Imperial law." Morrison shook his head slowly. "I don't have the authority to surrender humanity. That decision belongs to our elected leaders, but I can tell you what their answer will be. Every human government will vote the same way. We would rather fight and die as free beings than live as slaves." "Then you condemn your species to extinction," Vextar said with finality. "No, Admiral," Morrison replied with quiet determination. "We're giving your empire one last chance to avoid a war you cannot win. Don't mistake human restraint for weakness. Don't assume our smaller numbers mean easy victory. And whatever you do, don't push us past the point where we decide your empire needs to be stopped permanently." Vextar studied the human captain for a long moment. "You have 30 standard days to reconsider. Convince your leaders to accept Imperial authority or face the consequences." As the aliens departed, Lisa Grant asked quietly, "Do you think they'll listen to reason, sir?" Morrison watched the massive ships disappear into hyperspace and sighed. "No, Lisa. I think we just declared war on the galaxy's greatest power. God help us all." 3 weeks had passed since the ultimatum, and the Galactic Empire was growing impatient. Admiral Vextar commanded his fleet from the bridge of the massive dreadnought Imperial Fist as it moved toward human space. Behind him followed 200 warships, each one capable of destroying entire cities from orbit. "Status report," Vextar demanded from his reptilian subordinate. "Sir, our advanced scouts have identified all major human trade routes and military installations," Commander Sektar replied while studying a holographic display. "Their defensive positions are laughably weak. Most human colonies have no military protection at all." Vextar nodded with satisfaction. "Begin Phase 1 of the operation. Establish blockades around their primary shipping lanes. Seize any vessels that attempt to pass. I want the humans to understand that their economy exists only at Imperial pleasure." Meanwhile, at Earth's orbital command station, General Marcus Cole watched the tactical displays with growing concern. Reports flooded in from across human space as Imperial ships took control of major trade routes. The aliens were choking off commerce between human worlds while broadcasting demands for immediate surrender. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from 17 merchant ships," reported Colonel Sarah Davis from her station. "The Imperial forces are boarding every vessel and taking the crews prisoner." General Cole rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the star chart showing red markers where Imperial forces had established control. "How many warships do we have in position to respond?" 43 vessels within range of the blockade points," Davis answered. "But sir, Intelligence reports suggest each Imperial ship outguns our heaviest battleship by a factor of 5-to-1. What about our allies? Are the Martian Defense Force and the Outer Colony Militia ready to fight? Lieutenant Colonel Brad Johnson looked up from his communication console. Sir, President Hayes has declared a state of emergency. All human military forces are being mobilized, but we're still vastly outnumbered. The situation grew worse when Imperial forces struck at the mining colony on Proxima Centauri B. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks watched helplessly from the bridge of the battleship Defiance as enemy ships descended on his home world. His wife Maria and their 2 children lived in New Phoenix, the colony's largest settlement. Defiance, this is colony control, came the desperate transmission. Imperial forces are landing troops throughout the city. They're rounding up civilians and loading them onto transport ships. We need immediate assistance. Ryan Brooks felt his heart breaking as he listened to the panicked voices from his home. Colony Control, this is Lieutenant Commander Brooks. We're moving to assist, but Imperial ships are blocking our approach. The response came amid sounds of weapons fire and screaming. Ryan, is that you? This is Mayor Patricia Kim. They've taken your family along with 3,000 other colonists. The aliens are calling them slaves now. They said anyone who resists will be executed. Brooks turned to his captain with fury in his eyes. Sir, request permission to attack the Imperial transports. Captain Steve Miller understood his officer's pain but shook his head grimly. Ryan, they have 12 ships to our 1. If we attack now, we'll all die and your family won't be saved. On Luna Base, Dr. Amanda Walsh worked frantically in her laboratory studying pieces of captured Imperial technology. Her team had been analyzing alien equipment for weeks, looking for weaknesses that human forces could exploit. The advanced materials and energy systems were unlike anything humanity had developed. Doctor, I think we found something, announced her assistant, Dr. Kevin Park. The Imperial shield generators operate on a rotating frequency pattern. If we can predict the rotation, our weapons might penetrate their defenses. Dr. Walsh examined the data with growing excitement. Kevin, this could be the breakthrough we need. Send this information to all human military commanders immediately. At Wolf 359, Commander Helen Carter supervised the evacuation of the research station as Imperial forces approached. Her ships loaded scientists and their families while enemy vessels closed in from 3 directions. The research station contained years of work on advanced weapons and defensive systems that could not fall into Imperial hands. All civilian transports are loaded and ready for departure, reported Chief Engineer Danny Ross. But the Imperial fleet will intercept us before we reach the hyperspace jump point. Carter studied the tactical display and made a difficult decision. Set the station's reactor to overload. If we can't keep this technology from them, we'll make sure they can't use it either. The explosion of Wolf 359 research station created a brilliant flash visible for light years in every direction. The blast destroyed 3 Imperial ships, but also eliminated humanity's most advanced research facility, along with years of scientific progress. The Empire's cruelty became fully apparent when they destroyed the civilian transport ship Horizon's Hope, as it carried refugees from the outer colonies. Captain Nancy Foster and her crew of 20 died along with 2,000 men, women, and children who were fleeing the advancing Imperial forces. Admiral Vextar personally ordered the attack and broadcast the destruction across human space as a warning. Let this demonstrate the fate that awaits all who resist Imperial authority, his message declared. Your governments have 7 days to surrender unconditionally, or we will begin systematically destroying your worlds. The images of the destroyed refugee ship sparked outrage throughout human space. On Earth, President Nicole Hayes called an emergency session of the United Earth Federation Council. Representatives from Mars, the Belt Colonies, and the Outer Systems gathered in the council chamber with grim determination. The Imperial forces have made their intentions clear, President Hayes announced to the assembled delegates. They offer us slavery or death. I believe the choice is obvious. Representative Carl Thompson from the Mars colony spoke first. Madam President, we've seen what their weapons can do. Our military experts estimate we're outnumbered 10-to-1 by ships that are technologically superior to anything we've built. Are you suggesting we surrender? Demanded Representative Ellen Martinez. From the Belt Mining Consortium. I'm suggesting we consider all options before committing suicide, Thompson replied. Representative Paul Williams from the Outer Systems stood and addressed the council. My constituents sent me here with clear instructions. The people of the frontier worlds would rather die fighting than live as slaves. We've built our colonies with our own hands and we'll defend them the same way. The debate continued for hours as representatives weighed the impossible choice between resistance and submission. Finally, President Hayes called for a formal vote on the resolution to resist imperial domination. The vote was unanimous. Every human government chose war over slavery. General Cole received the news at his command post and immediately began implementing humanity's desperate battle plans. All units, this is Command Central. Operation Defiance is now in effect. All human military forces are authorized to engage imperial targets with extreme prejudice. Dr. Walsh's research team worked around the clock to weaponize their discoveries about imperial technology. Her laboratory became the center of humanity's technological response to an enemy that seemed invincible. Meanwhile, imperial forces consolidated their positions around human space, confident that the coming war would be over quickly. Admiral Vextar reviewed reports from his commanders and prepared for what he expected to be humanity's final surrender. Sir, human military forces are taking aggressive positions throughout their territory, reported Commander Sektar. Their ships are moving to intercept our advance units. Vextar made the sound that passed for laughter among his species. Let them come. When we destroy their primitive fleets, their leaders will finally understand the futility of resistance. But deep in human space, forces were gathering that the Empire had never encountered before. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what happened when someone pushed them too far. The Galactic Empire expected humanity's resistance to crumble within days. They were catastrophically wrong. Admiral Vexitar learned this lesson when his forward supply depot at Rigel Station simply vanished from all sensors during what should have been a routine night cycle. Captain Lisa Peterson commanded the stealth cruiser Silent Hunter as it slipped away from the destroyed Imperial facility. Her ship used advanced cloaking technology that the Empire didn't know humans possessed, making it invisible to their sensors and weapons targeting systems. Target eliminated, Captain, reported Weapons Officer Mike Chen from his console. The entire depot and 3 supply ships have been destroyed. Imperial forces won't be resupplying their advance fleet for weeks. Peterson studied the tactical display with satisfaction. Excellent work, people. Set course for our next target. The Empire is about to learn that humans don't fight fair when our survival is at stake. The Silent Hunter was one of 12 stealth vessels that struck Imperial supply lines simultaneously across a 100 light-year front. Each attack revealed new human technologies that shocked enemy commanders who had dismissed humanity as primitive. At the captured mining colony on Proxima Centauri B, Colonel Sam Turner led the 1st Human Special Forces Regiment in a desperate assault to free the enslaved colonists. His troops wore powered exoskeletons that enhanced their strength and speed, while neural interfaces linked their minds for perfect coordination. First Squad, take the landing pad, Turner commanded through the neural link. Second Squad, breach the prison compound. Third Squad, secure the transport ships. Remember, our people are counting on us. The Imperial Guards had never faced anything like human special forces. Soldiers who moved like ghosts through the darkness, struck with impossible precision, and fought with a ferocity that defied explanation. Within 2 hours, the colony was free and 3,000 human prisoners were evacuated to safety. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks finally reunited with his family as the rescue ships departed Proxima Centauri. His wife Maria held their children close while tears streamed down her face. "I knew you'd come for us," she whispered. "I never stopped believing." But the real shock came when Imperial forces attempted to assault the outer colonies in what Admiral Vexitar expected to be an easy conquest. Commander Alex Morgan's defense fleet at Tau Ceti employed humanity's secret weapon, quantum entanglement communication networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances. "All units, this is Defense Command," Morgan broadcast to his scattered fleet. Imperial forces are approaching from sectors 7, 12, and 18. Execute pattern Delta on my mark. The human ships moved as a single organism, despite being spread across the entire star system. Their tactics flowed like water, adapting instantly to every Imperial maneuver while maintaining perfect coordination through quantum communications. Imperial. Commander Zektar watched in growing alarm as his superior numbers and firepower failed to achieve decisive victory. How are they coordinating so precisely across such distances? He demanded from his bridge crew. Unknown, sir, his tactical officer replied. Our intelligence reports indicated their communication systems were primitive. This level of coordination should be impossible with their technology. Dr. Amanda Walsh's research breakthrough changed everything when the first wave of Imperial dreadnoughts encountered the human fleet at the Battle of Vega Prime. Her team had developed virus torpedoes that could penetrate Imperial computer systems and turn their own technology against them. Captain Dave Johnson commanded the battlecruiser Retribution as it launched the first salvo of viral weapons. Fire tubes 1 through 20. Let's see how these Empire bullies like fighting their own ships. The massive Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion began shuddering as its computer systems turned hostile. Weapons fired randomly, shields fluctuated wildly, and life support systems began shutting down throughout the kilometer-long vessel. Within minutes, the supposedly invincible dreadnought tore itself apart from within. My God, whispered Johnson's weapons officer, Lieutenant Carol Adams. Their own ship is destroying itself. The virus is making their computers fight each other. Across the battlefield, Imperial ships began experiencing the same malfunctions as human virus torpedoes infected their networks. The Empire's technological advantage became a weakness as their advanced systems turned against them. News of the Imperial defeats spread quickly through both human and alien communication networks. The Galactic Empire's member species began experiencing something they hadn't felt in centuries: doubt about their master's invincibility. On the aquatic world of Cetacea Prime, High Admiral Mordun of the Cetacean Fleet received disturbing reports from the front lines. These humans fight unlike any species we've encountered, he reported to the Imperial High Command. Their tactics show no regard for acceptable casualty rates. They appear willing to sacrifice everything to achieve victory, the insectoid hive. Queen Vexhara connected to her fleet through quantum neural links and sensed the fear spreading among her warriors. The humans emit emotional patterns that disrupt our collective consciousness, she reported. Their determination and rage interfere with our coordination. But the most shocking discovery came when human forces captured an Imperial intelligence ship intact. Computer specialist Rachel Green led the team analyzing enemy databanks and made a disturbing discovery about the Empire's true nature. General Cole, you need to see this immediately, Green reported from the captured vessel. The Empire's own records show they rule through fear and brutality. Most of their member species are conquered peoples held in line by terror. General Cole studied the intelligence files with growing understanding. So the Great Galactic Empire is just another tyranny built on oppression. This changes our entire strategy. Captain Greg Williams commanded the intelligence vessel, Shadows Edge, as it made contact with potential rebel groups throughout Imperial space. His ship carried messages of hope to enslaved species who had dreamed of freedom for generations. This is Captain Williams of the United Earth Federation, he broadcast on encrypted channels to the Andromedan resistance movement. Humanity offers alliance and support to all peoples seeking freedom from Imperial oppression. The response came from underground leaders on dozens of worlds. Species that had been conquered centuries ago began preparing for rebellion as news of human victories spread through secret networks. Major Karen Foster led her Marine battalion in increasingly bold raids against Imperial installations. Her troops had learned to exploit the enemy's overconfidence and technological dependence while using human advantages of adaptability and determination. Remember, people, Foster addressed her troops before their assault on the Imperial fortress world of Zerion. The Empire thinks we're primitive because we fight with passion instead of just following programs. Let's show them why human heart beats alien logic every time. The fortress fell in 6 hours despite being defended by 3 elite Imperial legions. Human forces used tactics that confused enemy computers. Deception, misdirection, and pure aggressive fury that overwhelmed systematic defensive protocols. Admiral Vextar received increasingly desperate reports from his commanders as human forces pushed deeper into Imperial territory. The war that should have ended in days had stretched into months with no victory in sight. "Sir, we've lost contact with 17 forward bases in the last week," reported Commander Sektar with barely controlled panic. "Human forces are appearing everywhere simultaneously. They're using tactics our computers cannot predict." "How is this possible?" Vextar demanded. "Our war simulations showed human resistance collapsing within days of the first major engagement. The simulations assumed they would fight rationally, sir. Human forces ignore casualty projections and acceptable loss ratios. They fight as if every battle determines their species' survival." Colonel Amy Patterson's reconnaissance team made the discovery that would change the war's entire direction. While infiltrating Imperial communication networks, they uncovered evidence that many Empire worlds were themselves conquered territories ruled by fear. "General Cole, we've identified over 40 species within Imperial territory that are actually unwilling subjects," Patterson reported. "If we can convince them to rebel simultaneously, the Empire's forces would be spread too thin to maintain control. The plan that emerged from this intelligence would transform a defensive war into a liberation campaign." Humanity had learned that their enemy was not the united galactic power it claimed to be, but a house of cards built on oppression and fear. As human forces prepared for the next phase of the war, Admiral Vextar finally understood the magnitude of his miscalculation. "We have awakened something terrible," he confided to his personal log. "The humans don't just fight to win, they fight to destroy anything that threatens their freedom. And now they're teaching other species to fight the same way." 6 months into the war, the Galactic Empire faced a nightmare they had never imagined possible. What began as a simple conquest had become a brutal campaign of attrition against an enemy that refused to accept defeat. The Empire's 12-member species were beginning to question whether their masters could actually win this war. Major Karen Foster led her Marine battalion through the liberated slave camps on Proxima Centauri B, documenting the horrors they found. Imperial overseers had been using human prisoners for genetic experiments, treating men, women, and children like laboratory animals in sterile research facilities. "Dear God," whispered Dr. Janet Morris as she examined the medical records left behind by fleeing Imperial scientists. They were trying to create hybrid slave species by combining human DNA with other conquered peoples. These weren't prisoners of war, they were breeding stock. Foster felt rage building inside her as she looked at the empty cells where families had been separated and children taken from their parents. The images her team recorded would be broadcast throughout human space, eliminating any remaining voices, calling for negotiation with the Empire. "Ma'am, we found something else," reported Sergeant Tim Cooper as he led Foster to a sealed section of the facility. "The Imperial records show they've been doing this to other species for centuries. The whole Empire is built on genetic slavery." The discovery changed everything. President Hayes addressed the United Earth Federation from the council chambers, with steel in her voice. "Citizens of humanity, we now understand the true nature of our enemy. This is not just a war for our freedom. This is a war to end the greatest evil our galaxy has ever known." Admiral Patricia Stone commanded humanity's largest fleet as they pushed deep into Imperial territory, using tactics that terrified the enemy. Her ships employed strategies that seemed impossible. Kamikaze drones that overwhelmed point defenses, gravity weapons that crushed enemy vessels like tin cans, and boarding parties of humans in advanced combat armor who carved through Imperial ships with ruthless efficiency. "Target the command ship," Stone ordered from the bridge of her flagship Unconquerable. "I want their admiral to watch his fleet die before we take him prisoner." The Imperial defensive fleet at Altair tried to retreat, but found their escape routes blocked by human forces that had somehow predicted their movements. Captain Joe Martinez led his fighter squadron in precision strikes against the enemy flagship's engines, while boarding teams prepared to capture Imperial leadership alive. "This is Captain Martinez to all attack squadrons," he broadcast as his fighters dove toward the massive alien vessel. "Remember, we want prisoners who can tell us about other slave camps. Try not to destroy the whole ship." The Empire's member species began openly questioning their leadership as human forces proved unstoppable in engagement after engagement. The aquatic cetaceans lost their entire fourth fleet to a human ambush in the Nebula of Tears, where Captain Sandra Lee used the nebula's interference to hide her ships until the enemy was completely surrounded. "How did they know we would route through this sector?" demanded Cetacean Admiral Morden as his flagship shuddered under human weapon fire. "Our course was classified at the highest levels." The answer came when his communication officer discovered human infiltration programs throughout their computer networks. "Sir, they've been inside our systems for weeks. They know everything about our fleet movements and strategic plans." The insectoid hive mind suffered an even worse defeat when their queenship fell to a coordinated human assault. The loss of their primary command node left millions of hive warriors without unified leadership, causing chaos throughout their forces. General Benjamin Clark coordinated the largest human offensive of the war, Operation Righteous Fury. 50 battle groups struck simultaneously across 12 Imperial worlds in a demonstration of humanity's growing military power and strategic reach. "All task force commanders, this is General Clark," he broadcast from Earth's Orbital Command Center. "Execute your assigned missions. Show the Empire what happens when they mistake human mercy for weakness." The coordinated assault sent shockwaves throughout Imperial space. Worlds that had been secure for centuries suddenly found themselves under attack by human forces that appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating effectiveness, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Colonel Amy Patterson's intelligence teams had infiltrated Imperial communication networks so thoroughly that they could monitor enemy strategy meetings in real time. "General, we're intercepting communications from Imperial High Command," she reported. "They're discussing retreat to their core systems." "Are they planning surrender?" General Clark asked hopefully. "No, sir. They're planning to use weapons of mass destruction against human civilian targets. The gloves are coming off. The Empire's desperation became evident when they attempted to destroy Earth's moon using a planet-killer weapon. The attack failed when human defense platforms revealed another technological surprise: energy absorption shields that converted enemy weapon power into fuel for human systems. Captain Greg Williams watched from the bridge of Shadow's Edge as the Imperial superweapon fired its killing beam at Luna. Instead of destroying the moon, the energy was absorbed by defensive shields and redirected to power human weapon systems. "Target acquired," reported Weapons Officer Lisa Parker, firing all enhanced batteries at Imperial Dreadnought. The planet-killer weapon vanished in a spectacular explosion as its own redirected energy tore through its hull. The message was clear: humanity could turn the Empire's greatest weapons against them. Meanwhile, Patterson's team made contact with rebel movements throughout Imperial space. Species that had been enslaved for centuries began coordinating uprisings as they realized the Empire could be defeated. "This is Colonel Patterson to Andromedan Resistance Command," she transmitted on secure channels. "Human forces will provide weapons and tactical support for simultaneous rebellions across 17 Imperial systems." The response came from underground leaders who had dreamed of freedom for generations. "Colonel, our people are ready. We've been preparing for this moment for 300 years. Captain Linda Ross commanded the dreadnought Freedom's Price as it spearheaded the assault on the Imperial fortress world of Tyrannon. Her ship led a combined fleet of human warships and rebel vessels in the largest battle of the war. "All ships, this is Captain Ross," she broadcast to the mixed fleet. "Today we prove that freedom is stronger than tyranny. Attack at will and show no mercy to slavers." The battle for Tyrannon lasted 18 hours and ended with complete human victory. The fortress world's defenses crumbled under coordinated attacks by humans and their new alien allies while Imperial forces retreated in disorder. Dr. Amanda Walsh's research teams had reverse-engineered so much Imperial technology that human weapons were now superior to anything the Empire could field. Her laboratories produced innovations daily that gave human forces new advantages in the expanding conflict. "General Cole, our new quantum torpedoes are ready for deployment," Walsh reported from her facility on Luna. "These weapons can penetrate any known Imperial defensive system and cause chain reaction explosions in enemy fleets." The tide of war had turned completely. Imperial forces found themselves fighting not just humanity but dozens of rebel species, armed with human weapons and trained in human tactics. The Empire's advantage in numbers vanished as their own conquered peoples turned against them. Admiral Vextar received reports of defeats and rebellions from across Imperial space with growing desperation. "How many systems have we lost contact with?" he asked his staff officers. 43 confirmed lost, sir," replied his intelligence chief with barely controlled fear. "Another 27 are reporting active rebellions. The humans have somehow convinced our own subjects to fight against us. What about our core worlds? Are they still secure?" "For now, sir. But human forces are advancing on multiple fronts while rebel uprisings spread throughout the outer territories. We estimate they'll reach the core systems within 6 months. Vextar stared at the strategic display showing red markers where Imperial control had collapsed. The map that once showed overwhelming Imperial dominance now revealed an empire crumbling. From within, as humanity's message of freedom spread like wildfire, "Prepare all available forces for a final defense of the capital," he ordered, with the weight of inevitable defeat heavy in his voice. "If we cannot stop them at Proxima Imperialis, the Empire falls." But across human space, forces were gathering for the final offensive that would bring the war to the Empire's doorstep and end their reign of terror forever. 2 years after the Empire's ultimatum, the war that was supposed to end in days reached its final phase. The Galactic Empire that once commanded 10,000 warships could barely muster 400 vessels for the defense of their capital world. Rebellion had spread throughout Imperial space as conquered species fought for the freedom humanity had shown them was possible. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted from his first contact mission, led the combined liberation fleet of over 3,000 ships toward Proxima Imperialis. The massive armada included vessels from dozens of species that had thrown off Imperial rule and joined humanity's cause. "Fleet status report," Morrison requested from his flagship Liberator as they approached the Empire's last stronghold. "All human task forces report ready for combat," replied his tactical officer, Commander Beth Taylor. "Rebel fleet elements from 17 different species are in position. We have overwhelming superiority in numbers and firepower." Morrison studied the display showing the capital world's defenses and felt no satisfaction in the approaching victory. Too many good people had died to reach this point. "Signal all ship commanders. Remember, our goal is to end this war, not to become the monsters we've been fighting." On Proxima Imperialis, Admiral Vextar prepared for the final battle from his command bunker deep beneath the Imperial Palace. The reptilian commander who had once dismissed humanity as primitive now understood the magnitude of his miscalculation. "Sir, long-range sensors show the human fleet approaching," reported his Aide Commander Sector. "They have 3 times our remaining forces, and most of our member species are fighting alongside them." Vexitar looked at the strategic display with the bitter knowledge that his empire was doomed. "How many of our original allies remain loyal?" "Only the Saurian fleets and 2 hive mind battle groups, sir. All other species have either joined the rebellion or declared neutrality." The final battle began when the Liberation Fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Human ships led the advance while their rebel allies moved to surround the Imperial home fleet. The engagement that followed would determine the fate of the galaxy. Captain Linda Ross commanded the dreadnought Freedom's Price as it exchanged fire with Vextar's flagship Eternal Empire. The 2 massive vessels pounded each other with weapons that lit up space like artificial suns while smaller ships swirled around them in deadly combat. "Direct hit on their command section," reported Weapons Officer Mark Davis. "Their shields are failing and I'm reading multiple hull breaches." Ross felt no joy in the destruction of enemy ships. "Signal their commander. Offer them one last chance to surrender before we finish this." The response came from Admiral Vextar himself, transmitted on open channels so both fleets could hear his words. "Captain Ross, I have spent my life serving an empire I believed brought order to chaos. I now understand that we brought only tyranny, disguised as civilization." "Admiral, you can still save the lives of your remaining crews," Ross replied. "Surrender now and help us build something better from the ashes of your empire. The humans have already won more than this battle," Vextar continued as his flagship shuddered under repeated hits. "You have shown our conquered peoples that freedom is possible. You have proven that warriors who fight for principle are stronger than soldiers who fight for conquest. The Imperial flagship's destruction marked the end of organized resistance. Scattered Imperial forces throughout the system either surrendered or fled toward deep space as the 3,000-year-old Galactic Empire finally collapsed. The surrender ceremony took place aboard Morrison's flagship, with representatives from dozens of liberated species witnessing the historic moment. The remaining Imperial leaders signed documents formally ending hostilities and accepting the dissolution of their government. President Nicole Hayes addressed the assembled delegates via quantum communication from Earth. Today marks not the victory of one species over another, but the triumph of freedom over oppression. We did not fight this war to become conquerors. We fought to ensure that all intelligent species have the right to determine their own destiny. General Marcus Cole stood beside the president and added, "The former Imperial territories will be offered a choice. Join the new Galactic Federation as equal partners or maintain independence with guaranteed protection from any future aggression." The response from liberated worlds was overwhelming. Species that had been enslaved for centuries voted to join the Federation, while others chose independence but requested defensive alliances with humanity. The galaxy began transforming from an empire built on fear into a community based on cooperation. Dr. Amanda Walsh led the technology-sharing initiatives that saw human innovations spread throughout Federation space. Medical advances that had taken humanity decades to develop were freely shared with species whose own research had been suppressed under Imperial rule. The quantum communication networks that gave us tactical advantages during the war will now connect peaceful civilizations across the galaxy, Walsh explained to the Federation Science Council. Trade, cultural exchange, and scientific collaboration will replace conquest and exploitation. Former Imperial Admiral Zekron, now serving as a Federation Council member representing reformed Saurian worlds, worked with human officials to establish new governance structures. Your species has taught us that true strength comes from unity freely chosen, not obedience enforced by fear, he said during the Federation's first assembly. Captain Greg Williams commanded the exploration vessel, New Horizons, as it led joint expeditions into previously forbidden regions of space. His crew included humans and aliens working together to discover what wonders awaited in the vast cosmos beyond former Imperial borders. "Captain, we're receiving signals from an uncharted system," reported his Andromedan science officer, Dr. Kithara. "The transmissions indicate another intelligent species that was never contacted by the Empire." Williams smiled at the possibility of peaceful first contact with a new civilization. "Set course for the system. Let's show them what the galaxy looks like when explorers come in peace instead of conquest." The war crimes trials that followed. The Empire's surrender were conducted by joint tribunals including judges from multiple species. Justice was served not through revenge but through truth and reconciliation processes that helped heal the wounds left by centuries of oppression. Colonel Amy Patterson led the investigation teams that documented Imperial atrocities, while also identifying the minority of Imperial officials who had tried to moderate their government's brutality. "Even in the darkest organizations, we found individuals who tried to do right," she reported. "They deserve recognition alongside justice for the guilty." The memorial service on Earth honored not just the 127,000 humans who died in the war, but the millions of beings from all species who perished fighting for freedom. President Hayes delivered the closing words at the ceremony attended by representatives from across the galaxy. "They tried to make us all slaves," she said, as the eternal flame was lit in memory of the fallen. "Instead, they taught us that when beings stand together for justice, no force in the universe can stop them. We didn't want this war, but we're grateful for what it accomplished." Admiral Morrison, now serving as the Federation's first human ambassador, watched the ceremony with representatives from dozens of worlds. The former Imperial Admiral Zekron stood beside him and spoke quietly. "Your species kept its promise, Ambassador. You warned us not to push you too far. We should have listened. But perhaps this outcome was better than any negotiated peace could have been." Morrison nodded as he watched children from multiple species playing together in the memorial gardens. The galaxy needed leaders who would fight for all peoples, not just their own. I'm glad humanity could serve that role when history demanded it. The Federation's first joint exploration mission departed Earth carrying representatives from 27 species working together to map unknown regions of space. Their mission was to seek out new life and new civilizations, offering friendship and assistance instead of conquest and control. Dr. Morris, the physician who had documented imperial atrocities, now led medical missions to worlds still recovering from centuries of oppression. Healing takes time, she said as her teams worked alongside alien doctors to restore health to liberated populations. But working together, we can cure wounds that seemed permanent. The transformation was not without challenges. Some former, imperial species struggled to adapt to freedom after generations of authoritarian rule. Human advisors worked patiently with new governments, teaching democratic principles while respecting cultural differences. Captain Lisa Peterson, the stealth ship commander who had struck the first blow against Imperial supply lines, now captained a Federation vessel exploring the Galactic Rim. Her crew included former enemies who had become trusted colleagues in the shared mission of discovery. Sensors are detecting signs of an ancient civilization in this system, reported her cetacean navigator, Commander Morris. The ruins appear to predate the Empire by millions of years. Then we might learn about civilizations that existed before tyranny ruled this galaxy, Peterson replied with excitement. Set us down on the surface. Let's see what wisdom the past might offer for our future.